Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pacers Daily. I am your host, Hery Acosta. Let's get straight into it. I record every Monday through Friday, so hit that like and subscribe button if you want more Pacers content or just any other kind of content when it comes to the Pacers. If you want to hear about free agency, about my predictions for the season, or just anything you want to hear about, just let us know. But as always, let's get straight into it. First things first, let's start with Pascal Siakam, potential All-NBA season coming. Now, we've seen him be an All-NBA player, All-Star, Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Would have been one of the favorites to win Finals MVP if the Pacers would have ended up winning the championship. But just a guy that can consistently get you 20-plus points, between 8 and 10 rebounds, and just someone who can play both sides of the ball pretty well. Now, obviously, his offense is a lot better than his defense, but he has made some very good plays on defense, some game-saving blocks, some big rebounds. We've seen him do it all. And just he has to be able to kind of step up into that leader role and kind of just, which he's done throughout his career in Indy, which is only been a year and a half, but throughout that time he has been a vocal leader. He has been someone that the players look up to because he is one of the veterans on the team now. He has that championship experience, so he's pretty much done all that. But now, not having that second star player, not having Halliburton on the court, someone else is going to step up, and he's going to have to be that full-time leader, that full-time best player on the court at all times. Now, obviously, there's going to be some games where other players are going to step up, and that's great. That's going to be amazing. But as of right now, we're looking at Siakam the way we got to look at other big name stars. Just because he's going to have to be that guy. He's going to have to show everyone, oh, we're not stepping back just because our star player is injured. No, we're going to try to be better than we were last year. Now, if that happens, then it's going to shock everybody. But if it doesn't, then it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, just play your hearts out and go from there. Now, the rest of the episode is going to be about some free agency. Now, two of the players I'm discussing I have talked about, but there seems to be absolutely no leads into what's going on with them. Now, Ben Simmons has a little bit more kind of news around him, but let's just start with someone who never gets talked about just because, maybe he's not the ideal player that everyone wants. But Garrison Matthews is a good three-point shooter and someone who can come off your bench and just start lighting it up. Now, he's not mainly a rotational player. There's a bunch of times where he's a DNP, a healthy scratch, or just sometimes where he plays maybe 5 minutes a game in garbage time. But on a team like the Pacers, we could use a little bit more shooting off the bench, and it wouldn't hurt to pick up Matthews on on a minimum contract. He's not someone who's going to be scraping out multi-million-dollar deals for the rest of his career. But definitely someone who, he averages almost 7 points a game, 6.5 to be exact. And, 38% from the three is not horrible. That's pretty decent. And just he can get a chance here in Indy. Now, I don't see it fully happening, but I just thought it'd be good to talk about just because I do like talking about free agency. Just because there's still a lot of free agents. This free agency period was a little bit all over the place just because there's still a lot of players unsigned. I was looking through it. Al Horford is still not even signed to the Warriors. There's still a lot of players on that free agency list that could end up potentially wanting a training camp spot with the Pacers. One of them would be Garrison Matthews that I think would be good. Now we're going to talk about the two Sixers number one picks of the 2010s. And we're going to start with the one who's had a better career, but has had a crazy fall off, and that's Simmons. Now, we've talked about Simmons multiple times, but I think it's time to just kind of put all the cards on the table, and just the fact that I don't even know if he wants to keep playing basketball. There's reports that his camp and him, he was dropped by his agent, and now he's kind of contemplating if he wants to continue playing basketball. He's been in the league less than 10 years as a number one pick, who's a 3-time All-Star, All-Defensive Team player, someone who actually was looking like he was going to be the next big thing, and then everything just fell apart. But I mean, his injuries have been wild. His injuries have been terrible, and just his confidence has been an all-time low since that famous open layup um, pass where he was literally under the rim and he decided just to pass it out into a contested three. But recently Simmons has been on the Sixers, Nets, and then recently the Clippers. Didn't really do much for the Clippers, but he just recently turned down a contract with the Knicks, which kind of shocked me because I just don't know if a team like the Pacers would offer him a contract. If they did, it'd be a minimum. They're not going to try to spend all that money on Simmons, especially when he was making crazy money between the Sixers and the Nets just because they were like, oh, he's going to be a dog. Let's give him a massive extension. And then he just didn't play up to it. So now he's been kind of just scraping contracts because he's sometimes borderline unplayable. And that's not something you want to hear from a guy who was drafted number one less than 10 years ago. But obviously, we've seen horrible number one draft picks like Anthony Bennett. But, Simmons was never a bad first overall pick. He just, throughout over his career, he kind of just progressed like from all-star to I'm not gonna call him a bust just because he's made the all-star game. He's had some credentials, he's had some accolades, but he's kind of just in that weird middle ground for number one picks. But just right now, it's not looking too good. Now, I would take Fultz to Indy. I think at the moment he's got a little bit more upside than Simmons. Now, Fultz, everyone knows he could be labeled a bust. Drafted before players like Jason Tatum, Jaren Jackson, Bam Adebayo, and just he can come to Indy and average 8 to 10 points a game off the bench easily. So he's another guy that could get a minimum contract. Now, I'm a little surprised that the Kings didn't bring him back because he wasn't playing bad on the Kings. He was actually having a really, really solid, short tenure on that team. But, he's also one of those number one picks that's like, okay, if you can't prove yourself as number one pick, the teams aren't going to line up for you. And that's what happened to John Wall. I mean, John Wall was an absolute beast on the Wizards. 5-time All-Star. And then he got traded to Houston in that Russell Westbrook trade. And then after Houston, he went to the Clippers. And then after that, no team wanted him. No team wanted a former first overall pick who was a 5-time All-Star. Which, sadly, I can see that happening to both Simmons and Fultz. Now neither of them are 5-time All-Stars or some of the most explosive players I've ever seen. But it's definitely sucks to see. But now back to Fultz, kind of how he would fit in Indy. More guard depth wouldn't hurt. Kind of a veteran guy to give players like Cam Jones and Taylor Peters some pointers. Help coach out Ben Shepherd a little bit. Shepherd is a little bit inconsistent. And just kind of bring someone in who's played in the NBA for a while. Now, obviously, he hasn't had a crazy substantial amount of games because of his injuries. Now, he played less than 30 games as a member of the Sixers. I mean, barely played anything from Philadelphia. Most of his career has been in Orlando, and he had a decent tenure in Orlando. So maybe you can build on that. But as always, I'm your host, Hery Acosta. This is Pacers Daily. Boom, baby, and go, Sirs.